maintain housing stability. And do you believe having access to affordable housing should be a right in this country? Well, you've come to the right place. You're listening to LA's all-new progressive talk radio station, of the people, by the people, for the people. It's KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got you covered around the clock. Racism?
We don't hate white people, we hate the oppressors, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow.
We got you. Miseducation? We got you. Gun violence? We have you covered.
If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
A black-owned and operated, evidence-based alternative radio station for progressive, open-minded people like you and me. Welcome home, LA. We're all in this together. It's KBLA Talk 1580, broadcasting from the heart of LA's Leimert Park. We've got a lot to talk about.
You can't do it unless you believe that you can do it.
1, 2, 3, go! Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. All right. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you to download our app at KBLA 1580 and listen to us with the app live anywhere in the world in real time, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 40 years ago, the Reagan administration released a landmark report called A Nation at Risk, warning of a rising tide of mediocrity in U.S. schools. So, 40 years later, has anything changed? What is the state of America's schools? 4 decades later, are black students in particular still being victimized by the soft bigotry of low expectations? We'll be joined in hour 2 by distinguished professor of education at UCLA, Dr. Tyrone Howard, who's also the current president of the American Educational Research Association. That in hour 2. In our third hour, how to stay sane in an insane world, how to control the controllables and thrive. We will talk with Greg Harden, author, life coach, and executive consultant, about how to confront and tackle the high-pressure moments in our personal and professional lives, how to become the best version of ourselves, and curate the lives we truly want to live. Greg Harden has worked with winners from Michael Phelps to Tom Brady. In fact, Tom Brady writes the foreword in his new book. Greg Harden joins us live today in hour 3. But let's commence today's program talking politics with the former White House aide, best-selling author, and national political commentator Keith Boykin. Keith, good to have you back, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Tavis. How are you?
Man, if I complain, I've been in great. I'm glad to be here, glad to hear your voice, and glad we have an hour. There is a whole lot of stuff to talk about in this hour. Let me start with this. If you did not get a chance to see or hear any of the sound from this weekend's White House Correspondents' Dinner, it is the annual gathering where the president lets his hair down, so to speak, a little bit and engages in some fun. There's always a featured comedian. And so it's a huge dinner. Everybody in Washington is fighting for a ticket to get inside the room. And this year was interesting because the president, after announcing earlier in the week that he would, in fact, seek re-election, poke some fun at himself. So just to give you a few laughs, here's a few minutes of some of the highlights from the dinner. You will hear the voices, of course, of President Joe Biden and the comedian Roy Wood Jr. in these clips from this weekend's White House Correspondents' Dinner.
In a lot of ways, this dinner sums up my first 2 years in office. I'll talk for 10 minutes, take 0 questions, and cheerfully walk away.
Happy to be here. Oh, real quick, Mr. President, I think you left some of your classified documents up here. You can get to the... Yeah, no, don't give them to him. I'll put them in a safe place. He don't know where to keep them.
You say I'm ancient. I say I'm wise. You say I'm over the hill. Don Lemon would say that's a man in his prime.
Don Lemon released a statement saying he got fired from CNN. Then CNN released a statement saying that they offered Don a meeting. They had to part ways because Don Lemon can't even accurately report a story about Don Lemon. Yes, Don Lemon was a diva, and he said a couple of women are raggedy in the face, but that's a promotion at Fox News.
Vaccinated the nation, transformed the economy, earned historic legislative victories and midterm results, but the job isn't finished. I mean, it is finished for Tucker Carlson.
The untouchable Tucker Carlson is out of a job. Yeah. Okay. Some people celebrate it. But to Tucker's staff, I want you to know that I know what you're feeling. I work at The Daily Show, so I too have been blindsided by the sudden departure of the host of a fake news program.
Last year, your favorite Fox News reporters were able to attend because they were fully vaccinated and boosted. This year, with that $787 million settlement, they're here because they couldn't say no to a free meal.
No, I've been watching and looking around all night. Y'all look good. You dress nice. You got the nice threads on. You got the jewelry glistening. Look like everybody got a little piece of that settlement money from Fox News.
MSNBC owned by NBC Universal. Fox News owned by Dominion Voting Systems.
I love Dominion. Matter of fact, let me just say right now, my favorite voting machine is Dominion voting machines. When I go to the polls, I make sure it is a Dominion machine that I use. If your election needs the truth, put Dominion in your booth.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Those are some of the sounds from this weekend's White House Correspondents' Dinner. The voices, again, of President Joe Biden, of course, and Roy Wood Jr., the brilliant comedian. Now you hear the voice of Keith Boykin. Keith, I wanted to play that. You know, it's Monday morning, give folk a few laughs to start out the week, but I really wanted to play it because it seems to me that is one way, that's one approach for the president to take as he moves forward with all these questions and concerns about his age, to poke fun at himself. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'm glad you did play that, Tavis. I think that everyone knows that Joe Biden's age is a big issue, a liability for him in terms of the presidential race. And it affects him with Democrats as well as Republicans. But at the same time, I think what Biden is doing quite wisely is not running away from it, but leaning into it. Mm-hmm. You can't do anything about his age. You can't change how old he is. But what he can do is to show that he's still coherent, he's still on top of the job, he's still delivering for the American people, he's still responding to the concerns of not only his party, but the country. So I think using comedy is a very effective strategy for making that message.
Yep. How seriously do you think American voters will take the issue of age, particularly if, as many are predicting, the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party ain't a spring chicken either?
That's exactly the issue. You know, Donald Trump is almost 80 years old as well. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to see two 80-year-old white guys running for president, but that looks like the choice we're going to be facing in the 2024 election. And that, you know, this is another joke that Joe Biden also tells a lot. He says, don't judge me against the Almighty, judge me against the alternative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he's judged in isolation against, who we might think of as a perfect candidate, I don't think too many people, even in the Democratic Party, are going to select Joe Biden as the ideal candidate. But if he's judged against Donald Trump, there's no choice, I think, for the vast majority of Americans, and definitely for African Americans. There's just clearly no competition between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning, and again, in the second hour, we're going to be talking about a nation at risk. This report 40 years ago that the Reagan administration put out and assessed where we are 40 years later, given what they warned us about when it comes to education in our schools. But I thought about Ronald Reagan this morning walking in. I have to look this up to get the exact quote, but you recall the Reagan line when he was debating. He was debating one of the presidential debates running for president, and he said to his then opponent, essentially, I won't hold.
Yes, I remember that one.
Remember this line? If you don't hold my age against me, I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you. Something like that. You recall that, Keith? That line killed. It killed.
That was 84, I think, against Walter Mondale.
Yeah.
And everybody was concerned about Reagan's age. He wasn't even as old as Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Right.
But he said, I won't hold my opponent's youth and inexperience against them.
That's exactly right.
that was a clever way to diffuse the age issue.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything about it. It's
Yeah.
just one of those issues. You can't change your age, so you gotta live with it. You know?
Yeah. To your point, though, since Biden and Trump are both almost 80, of course, Biden already there, he can't use the Reagan line. I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you. But it was a great line. Maybe inexperienced, but not youth, right? Maybe inexperienced, but not the youth part. But that line worked for Ronald Reagan.
He could use it if Ron DeSantis wins the nomination.
There you go.
Which, by the way, I have to say, just for the sake of clarity, people have been talking about Ron DeSantis. I want to say on the record, I think there's zero chance that Ron DeSantis will win the nomination unless Donald Trump is not alive or he's in jail. Because Donald Trump will do everything he can to win that nomination. And if he doesn't win, even if he loses the vote, he will destroy the entire Republican Party before he allows Ron DeSantis or anyone else to be the nominee.
Yeah, I make this point every week because Trump's name, of course, comes up every week, as does Biden's for that matter, as it should. It's talk radio. We're talking politics. But not a single person, and I talk to all kinds of brilliant and connected contributors like Keith Borkin every week on this program, as you well know, and to a person, no one has said that they do not believe that Donald Trump is, in fact, the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. Everybody assumes that he is going to be the man. These indictments notwithstanding, you hear Keith's point, though, unless he's dead or in prison, he expects him to be the nominee, and I suspect everybody else I've talked to feels similarly. Just getting started in this first hour as we talk about politics, and there's a whole lot to cover, given what's happened over the last few days, over the weekend. Our guest is Keith Borkin. I'm Tavis Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Good thing we've got 3 hours.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
King C. Gillette is the modern man's answer to their facial hair. With a complete set of precision tools, the King C. Gillette line offers the perfect fit for your facial hairstyle. Want to try something great? try the Style Master, the quintessential styling tool that every man needs to craft their style. It's a waterproof, cordless trimmer with a long-lasting 4-directional blade. It's extremely versatile and designed to edge, trim, and stubble in 4 directions on any hair length. Master your style with King C Gillette.
We begin top story with late breaking news.
Is it going to succeed, yes or no?
I think it's going to succeed. It's going to succeed.
Can you believe it?
Y'all did it!
KBLA Talk 1580 is about to celebrate its 2nd anniversary on Juneteenth, and no terrible twos around here. We couldn't be more excited about all the good news we'll be announcing soon, including the launch of some new shows to keep giving you more of what you've been looking for.
Come on!
Smart radio for smart people. Hey, it's our celebration, but you get all the gifts. We'll be giving away fresh merch, swag bags, and a chance for you to join the private invitation-only, star-studded music and dance till you drop, food and drink galore 2nd anniversary celebration. To stay in the know about the 2nd anniversary details, download the KBLA Talk 1580 app right now. Don't miss out on your chance to be a winner. At KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward, we're bringing everybody with us.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Keith Boykin on KBLA Talk 1580, former White House aide, best-selling author, national political commentator, and glad to have Keith Boykin back with us on this program to talk politics for the rest of this hour. Back to that White House Correspondents' Dinner, Keith, Roy Woods Jr., the comedian, funny guy, made a joke that didn't land so well about some of these school shootings, and everybody kind of demurred. You hear a few rumblings in the House. So not something that they were prepared to at least get caught on tape laughing at. But all jokes aside, today is May 21st. This is the 121st day of the year. I find myself sadly doing this every week, and it always seems to happen on a Monday. Go figure. All these shootings, so many of them on the weekends. But today is May 21. Today's not May 21. May 1st. I'm tripping. I'm way ahead of myself. It's May. JD, you wrote May 21 on this page, by the way. I just read what you wrote. It's actually May 1. Today is the first day of May. Let me get that straight. I'm 21 days ahead of myself. JD's trying to push me faster than I really want to go. Today is May 1st. It is the 121st day of the year. That's what he was getting at, 121. Today is May 1, the 121st day of the year. And so far, 176 mass shootings this year. The 121st day of the year. But we've had 176 mass shootings so far. One over the weekend, of course, making national news in Texas. 5 people killed there. They are still looking for the shooter, unless something's happened in the last few minutes. Breaking news that I've not seen. They're still looking for the shooter who somehow got past police and cops, sheriffs, law enforcement, got past everybody. They thought they had him trapped. Somehow he escaped them, and right now they are saying they have zero leads in tracking down this shooter in Texas, just outside of Houston. A reward is now increased to $80K. So the story is developing. I raise it only because, Keith, as I said a moment ago, it seems that every Monday morning I have to update what day of the year we are in, how many mass shootings happened over the weekend, what the total number is for the year. Again, Roy Wood Jr. made a joke about this, didn't land so well. This is no laughing matter, and yet these shootings continue, Keith, unabated. What say you?
Well, yeah, it is not a laughing matter, but it's a sad state of affairs that our country has come to this point. And the Texas shooting, there's a lot of different elements to that, but I'll tell you something. I'm here in D.C., Washington, D.C. right now. Right. I live in Los Angeles. But I found out about the Texas shooting on Saturday morning. And early Saturday morning, I was in Annapolis, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And I was walking down the street, and I saw a monument for it was a newspaper article. It was on the monument plaque, and it said 5 people shot dead. And I looked at it. It was about the Capitol Gazette shooting that took place. The 5 journalists were shot 5 years ago. And then the exact same day when I see that headline, walking down the street, I hear this news story that 5 people were shot dead in Texas. And these headlines, they just keep repeating themselves because our country refuses to do anything about this tragedy of gun violence. And everybody, they want to, a lot of people on the conservative side, they always want to say, well, what about Chicago? What about Chicago? That's their default, instead of dealing with the reality that gun violence plagues every city in every state in this country. There's no city or state that is unique to this. Every city is affected by this. And the shooting in Texas is even more tragic because the governor, after the shooting took place, Governor Greg Abbott, came out and released a statement, and he described it as a shooting of 5 illegal immigrants. First of all, they weren't all undocumented, but secondly, the idea that you would dehumanize these people who were victims of gun violence instead of dealing with the fact that they were just minding their own business and they were shot and killed because of our obsessive gun culture, it shows just how far off kilter we are and how we respond to this. And I don't know, you talked about the people that they haven't been able to apprehend the person involved with this. Well, I don't know anyone who has suffered from gun violence or suffered from crime who wouldn't rather the crime not happen than have someone arrested after it happened. So we have to change our focus. We focus more on prevention of crime. That means taking guns out of the hands of people who don't need them instead of trying to solve the crime after people have already been killed and been hurt by it.
Yeah. What's sad about your reference to Governor Greg Abbott's comments is that Texas has confronted multiple mass shootings in recent years, including, of course, the attack at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde that left 21 people dead, a racist assault at an El Paso Walmart in 2019 that killed 23 people, a gunman opening fire at a church in a tiny town of Sutherland Springs in 2017 that left 24 people dead. This most recent shooting, as you mentioned, where 5 people are dead, and for the governor to come out and to blame it, to essentially dehumanize them, saying they're illegal immigrants, and for he and other governors to continue standing behind the NRA or with the NRA and doing nothing about these guns is tragic. In this particular shooting, there was another AR-15. I don't know anything about guns. It's just that there are 2 or 3 names of guns that I hear all the time. Every time these stories break, they seem to be the same instruments of death. And so I don't own a gun, never have, never shot a gun, never touched a gun. I am in my 50s. I have literally never touched a real gun in my life, never touched one. And so I know nothing about guns, but I know about gun culture, and I talk about it all the time, and we debate it all the time, and there are always these shootings that lead us into different conversations about it all the time. And so here again, another AR-15 being used. Here's the real sad part, Keith. When I said a moment ago that these shootings continue unabated, we are told by the Associated Press and USA Today, in partnership with Northeastern University, they are tracking these shootings and have been for some time now. We are told that this year is on track to set a new record for mass shootings. So the more we talk about it, and the more mass shootings that we, seem to be or act as if we are chagrined and troubled by, the more they keep happening. So here we are in 2023 about to set another record for mass shootings. Never mind all the conversation, all the talk, all the shootings, all the deaths. We are still on track to set a new record for mass shootings this year, Keith Boykin.
Well, we are. And the sad part is that the majority of the American people support action about this. The majority of American people, 80% or more, according to the polls, support universal background checks. They support restrictions on access to guns, raising the age to purchase guns. A large majority of Americans support the idea of banning assault weapons, and this is something we did before, and it had a positive effect in reducing mass shootings in our country, but it expired, and we just have moved into this territory in the past 2 decades where gun culture, in my opinion, has become synonymous with, dare I say, white supremacy. It has become a form of fearful white people to protect themselves from what they feel is this invasion of black and brown people. And this is something, Carol Anderson writes about this in her book, The Second. This is something that goes back historically to the early 1800s and late 1700s, when a lot of the fear about black people having guns, and the reason why they wanted white people to have guns was because they were afraid of black people having access to weapons that could be used against white people. So they wanted white people to be armed and black people to be disarmed. So we have this whole sort of this disconnect in the Second Amendment where it applies to some people where white people have the right to carry guns and walk down the street and not have problems. Remember Kyle Rittenhouse walked down the street in Kenosha. Nobody even bothered him while he was carrying an assault weapon, a young boy carrying an assault weapon after he just murdered 2 people. The police just let him walk by. But black people can't even be in the proximity or adjacent to a gun without being perceived as being violent and threatening and menacing, and therefore they had to be taken out and shot and killed by the police or some sort of vigilante or George Zimmerman type of a neighborhood watchman. This is the disconnect because a lot of us in the black community, I used to have this conversation with old friend Isaiah Washington, who is very pro-gun and conservative. But a lot of people in the black community have this perception that we will be safer if we all arm ourselves and we have guns. And I understand that. But the reality is that we don't get treated the same way in our society when we do have guns. I come from a family where people did have guns. I grew up around guns. I grew up next to a cornfield. I used to shoot a BB gun when I was a kid. My father had guns. My grandfather had guns. But I've also had guns pointed at me. I've been a victim of gun violence. I have somebody who tried to rob me with a gun here in Washington, D.C. My uncle was murdered by a gun in St. Louis, Missouri. I've seen people in my family use guns against other people in our family. And so I just know how this gun culture is hurting people, black and white, in this country, and we need to do something to rein it in.
Indeed, we do. I've often said that if you really want to solve the gun problem in this country, then arm every black person with a gun. I hear Keith's point about his debates over the years with Isaiah Washington. But I've said, again, many, many times, you want to solve the gun problem, give every Negro in America a gun. That'll stop all this madness. If everybody in this country who wants to target black people or beyond, for that matter, know that they're packing as well, that's going to solve your gun problem. When everybody's packing, ain't nobody shooting. It's mutual deterrence. And yet I hear Keith's brilliant point that the problem with that logic, Tavis, Keith is basically saying to me, is that black people still get treated differently when they have a gun or when they use a gun. So it doesn't really solve the problem to arm every Negro with a gun in this country. I hear his point. I digress when we come forward. A great deal more news to get to, including E. Jean Carroll, who resumes her testimony today in the Trump rape trial after the judge said there will be no mistrial. The case goes forward. You're listening to Keith Boykin and Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley
And get Twitter updates
at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. First Republic Bank is no more. Federal regulators seized the troubled bank early this morning and sold all the deposits and most of its assets to J.P. Morgan Chase. The FDIC says First Republic held $229 billion in total assets and $104 billion in deposits. It's the second biggest bank failure in U.S. history, behind only Washington Mutual in 2008. Adidas lost a considerable amount of money when it dissolved its partnership last year with African-American rapper Ye, formerly Kanye West, over his problematic and anti-Semitic behavior. Now the German apparel company is being sued by a group of investors who claim the company was aware that Ye could be an issue and did nothing at all to limit losses if things were to go south. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Problems as you head through Burbank if you're taking that 5 south. South 5 as you get towards Ala Verdugo. Wreck from earlier is cleared, but the busy commute here from at least Buena Vista. The Sepulveda Pass, 405 north. As you get up towards the top of the hill, Mulholland Skirball, there's a stalled vehicle that's towards the off-ramp there. The 405 north approaching the 110 transition into Carson, stalled vehicle affecting the 110 north. That's going to be sitting on the shoulder. Norwalk, 605 south at Rosecrans. Earlier wreck to the right side, but that busy drive from at least the 105.
I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. If you own a business and still haven't applied for the payroll tax refund, we want to pay a licensed tax attorney to see if you're eligible to receive up to $26,000 per employee. Go to getrefunds.com, getrefunds.com.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's the Lakers and Golden State in the Western Conference semifinals. The fifth time LeBron and Steph Curry will face each other in the NBA playoffs. The first time before the finals. Curry dropped 50 on Sacramento to spark Golden State to a 20-point win. The 50 is an NBA record for most points in a Game 7. In case you forgot, Curry is 35 years old and putting in work like that. A message for Anthony Davis. Be ready to get dirty under the basket. Golden State center Kevon Looney had 21 rebounds Sunday, 10 on the offensive boards. Game 1 is Tuesday night. The Miami Heat went into New York Sunday for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals and won by 7, 25 for Jimmy Butler. Doubleheader action tonight. Game 1 for Philadelphia and Boston, Phoenix at Denver in Game 2, both on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation are working to close the wealth gap between black and white households. B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program's free virtual workshops will help your family acquire, gain, maintain, and pass down legacy wealth. Learn from the experts about making more with what you have, the Black History of Money, joining the Smart Investors Club, preserving your assets in tough times, crypto, cash in or cash out, the wealthy mind and body. Register for this free series that could change your financial future at laul.org/BWAARP. Don't miss B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program, every second and fourth Thursday in February, March, and April at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Register now at laul.org/BWAARP. Congratulations to One United Bank for being this week's winner of KBLA's Office of the Week. Your office won lunch for 10, delivered by the original Taco Pete. Congratulations to One United Bank.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He's Keith Borkin, and we are glad to have you with us in this first hour today as we kick off the week, as we always do, talking about the politics over the weekend that you may have missed. Politics, social news, economic news. I got some of all of that today as we move through the rest of this hour. We'll get to J.P. Morgan Chase taking over First Republic Bank in a moment, and the fear this has put in other people that we're about to see some more drama with these banks that were, we are told, too big to fail. First Republic has failed. J.P. Morgan Chase has taken it over. But it's not just the failure that I want to get to with Keith in a moment. It is that J.P. Morgan Chase is already the largest bank in the nation, and they just got bigger. And I'm not sure how to read that. When we come forward, though, we'll tackle that. First, though, I mentioned before News, Traffic, and Sports that the case of defamation and rape against Donald Trump continues. E. Jean Carroll, who claims that Donald Trump raped her many years ago, returned to the witness stand in this case after the judge denied a defense request for a mistrial. It's important to note again that this is a civil case, so that whatever the verdict is in this case, Donald Trump will not go to jail because of this one. There are other cases, of course, where he could face jail time, and there are a number of cases, as you well know, listening to this program every day, that Donald Trump faces. Already indicted, arraigned, arrested in the case brought by Alvin Bragg in New York City. We're still waiting to see what Letitia James will do in New York State, what Fannie Willis will do in Fulton County in Georgia, what the special prosecutor would do in D.C., where Keith Borkin is today. There are two cases inside the Justice Department, as you well know, one regarding the documents at Mar-a-Lago, and the other regarding his behavior in the January 6th insurrection. Mike Pence, as you know, has now testified in that case regarding his former boss and their communications, and so that case continues to move forward, the special prosecutor's investigation. And again, E. Jean Carroll and this rape and defamation civil case in New York City. Keith Borkin, I don't know what the question here is other than to say, do you think that any of that will slow down the train? You mentioned earlier in this conversation that DeSantis is only the nominee if Donald Trump is dead or behind bars, and so how do you read all of these cases coming against Donald Trump?
Well, I don't know about you, Tavis, but if I have one person suing me or one person threatening to put me in jail, I would figure that would pretty much ruin my whole day or week or month or year. But
yeah.
This man has 5 or 6 different cases against him, just the main cases against him, and he seems to just continue on. I just don't know how somebody continues to cope like that when you have so many allegations that are facing you. But just starting with the first case, the E. Jean Carroll case. Let's just think about this for a second. Remember that just a few years ago, when Trump was president, his Justice Department under Bill Barr delayed this case. This is why it's only happening now. This case was filed years and years ago. Mm-hmm. They delayed this case because they said he's the president of the United States. He can't be sued, even though this is for conduct that happened before he was president. He tried to get the federal government, the U.S. taxpayers, to pay for representing him in this case. That's what Trump was doing, and that's the reason why this case has been so long getting to the court, because the Trump people have been delaying and delaying. That's his tactic for everything, pretty much. But this case is a very strong case, according to Trump's own former White House lawyer, Ty Cobb. He said that because of the way the case has been presented and because of the evidence they're able to be able to bring in about past incidents and before the E. Jean Carroll incident and previous incidents after that, it makes it very hard for the Trump team to overcome that. Even in a civil case, it looks like, unless he has some sympathetic jurors on his side, this is not going to go well for Donald Trump. Now, the other cases, you've already outlined what those are all about, so I don't need to get into them in detail, but I will say this. I do think that the Fani Willis case in Georgia is one of the most threatening cases of all, because we've all heard the tape. We've heard the tape where Donald Trump is on the telephone saying that he just needs to get 16,000 votes or whatever it is to find in order to win the election. He's not trying to uphold democracy. He's just trying to do whatever it takes to win. And we have evidence of it, and supposedly more evidence that might be coming. But we're expecting that won't happen until July to September, according to Fani Willis on that one. And then the insurrection case and all these other cases. I just don't understand how the Republican Party, the party that calls itself the Law and Order Party, plans to put Donald Trump, a man who has been twice impeached, currently indicted, facing rape allegations on trial in the civil case in New York, and potentially facing future indictments, to put this man on your national stage as your standard bearer and say this is a representation of why we believe in law and order. It's the blatant hypocrisy to even suggest that. He is not the person to represent that.
It'd be laughable if it weren't so serious. And I want to come to this in just a second here. Again, it'd be funny if it weren't so serious, given that there are other persons they could select to be their nominee. But I'm mindful of the fact that Donald Trump did beat Hillary Clinton. And we can laugh at this all we want, and yet, if he's the nominee, who knows what happens? Let me come to that in just a second. Just a quick update for those who have not been following this E. Jean Carroll rape and defamation case. She accused Donald Trump of raping her at a Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room in late 1995 or early 1996. And they've used that sort of undermine her credibility. She can't recall exactly when it happened, what day it happened, when it happened. They've tried to use that to undermine her credibility, but that's the accusation, that Trump raped her in a Bergdorf Goodman department store dressing room in the mid-'90s, number one. Her defamation claim comes from October 2022, when Trump posted on his Truth Social platform that she was advancing what he called a complete con job and a hoax and a lie. So the rape goes back years ago to allegedly a department store worked off Goodman in a dressing room, and the defamation part of this civil case is connected to Trump pushing out on social media that the case was a complete con job and a hoax and a lie. So there is how you get to defamation and rape. That's the backstory on this case. Again, E. Jean Carroll on the witness stand again today. We will see in the coming days what happens, but the judge, again, denied a defense request for a mistrial, and so the beat goes on, as they say, in that courtroom. Now, back to the point you made a moment ago, Keith, if I can, briefly, about Donald Trump. I hear your point. It'd be hard to make the case to you, me, or I suspect most of our listeners as to why Donald Trump deserves to be your presumptive nominee. It's going to be hard to make the case that you're the party of law and order with this guy as your standard bearer. I hear your point. And yet this is the guy that beat Hillary Clinton. This is the guy who, at the moment at least, it appears, I saw polls the other day that he's above 60%. Favorability. Most Republicans would vote for him today if the election were held today. So I take nothing against Joe Biden, but we didn't see Donald Trump beating Hillary Clinton, so I don't know what to make of it.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, he said when he ran for president in 2016 that he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue in New York City and shoot somebody and he wouldn't lose any supporters. So that tells you what type of people he's dealing with. Mm-hmm. Second thing, a recent poll came out just a few days ago that said that two-thirds of Republicans said they would still vote for Donald Trump even if he was convicted of a crime.
Mm-hmm. That's my point. You're
a law and order party.
You're making my point, though. You're making my point, man.
I agree. I mean, I don't assume that Trump was going to lose any support or voters for this. But I do think, not within the Republican Party, but I do think you can't win a presidential election for Donald Trump with just that Republican base. That base is loyal. They're not going anywhere.
Right.
Any Democrat thinks that they can try to convince those people to move over to the Democratic Party. They're losing their. They've lost their minds. That's not happening. They're going to support Trump through thick and thin. So you've got this base of people. The Republican Party in this country, averages. Both parties are averaging the 40% range. And then you've got the people who are in the middle who don't necessarily identify with political parties either way. And those are the people who just had the elections, the persuadable voters, the swing voters. And those people, the independent voters, do not like Donald Trump's criminal activity. That's why it's so difficult for him to win an election. The Hillary Clinton election notwithstanding, you have to understand, he still lost the popular vote in the election. But people were also sort of not fully aware of what kind of danger Donald Trump would pose at that time.
So
the Democratic Party has won the popular vote in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections.
Fair enough.
That's the first.
Fair enough. Let me push back, though, just for the sake of argument. Since we're talking about polls, there are 2 other polls we could point to that underscore, one, that most Americans don't want either one of these guys, Trump or Biden, to be president, number one. That's true. And secondly, as you and I both know, the enthusiasm, at the moment at least, maybe it will change between now and Election Day, but Biden's going to be the guy, but even the Democrats, the base, ain't excited about that. So my point is that anything, again, could happen. If the turnout is low, but those loyal voters to Trump turn out, I don't know, Keith Borkin. We'll continue when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. K.O. And we don't black down.
Attention LA seniors and persons with disabilities. Did you know you may qualify for generous discounts on your LA DWP bill through the Lifeline program? That's right. With Lifeline, you can save money on your bill. It's easy to join, and the Lifeline program also is the gateway for other benefits, such as qualifying for our refrigerator exchange program. So if you are a senior or have a disability, learn more at ladwp.com/lifeline. That's ladwp/lifeline.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is everyday.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Are you between 18 and 26 years old and trying to find out how you're supposed to make all this work? If you've said, I need a job and some transportation, rent, it's so high. Food, too. There's childcare, and I need to go back to school. I need to transform my life. Well, help is on the way. Transform Your Life Day is coming Saturday, April 29th at San Manuel Stadium. It's a shopping mall of free community services where you can talk with programs and even enroll right on the spot. It's free help for young adults to get you started on meaningful careers, finish up your diploma or your college degree. There's help with finding housing, transportation, food, and childcare. Plus, you get a free ticket to the 66ers game, free parking along with prizes. Get there early for free food. Reserve your free space today at ccc.ca.gov. That's ccc.ca.gov. ccc.ca.gov.
Interrogating your assumptions
and expanding your inventory of ideas.
Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Keith Morgan, let me give you the last word on this particular point. There are 2 other political issues I want to cover, and then we'll move to J.P. Morgan Chase's takeover of First Republic and what's happening economically in the country. But I agree with you. Ostensibly, a Trump-Biden rematch should be the greatest thing that Democrats can use, their best weapon to convince people to turn out to vote. And yet, as you know, there are people who want somebody other than Biden to run. I'm talking about Democrats now, want somebody other than Biden to run. So there's an enthusiasm gap, if you will.
Yeah, but there was an enthusiasm gap in 2020 too, and who won?
Fair enough.
Because the Trump people were saying this throughout the whole 2020 campaign. Well, look at all the people Trump is drawing at his rallies. They're excited, they're motivated, and the Biden is only drawing 10 or 20 people here and there, and that's not. Well, rallies and enthusiasm are nice, but that's not what counts in electing the president. It's about who gets most people to the polls to vote.
No, fair point, and that's my concern. My concern is turnout. No question in my mind who the better candidate is. I'm concerned, and I keep underscoring this issue about turnout, and maybe the more we say that, the more people will turn out when we get to the election. But we got a ways to go. We'll keep saying it, though. Quickly on this note, I saw a couple stories this weekend. I think this was in the New York Times I was reading, but I've seen these stories a few places. There's a disconnect, Keith, specifically intra-Black America, regarding Joe Biden. Black electeds, of course, as you might expect, are standing firmly with him. But there's some softness. There's some shrinkage, if you will. A slowdown in his support amongst black voters writ large. Again, so black electeds obviously standing firm with their president. But black voters writ large have some concerns. They're still upset about no policing bill passed. The George Floyd bill has not been passed. The John Lewis bill on voting rights has not been passed. So there are a number of things that are concerning to black folk. The Democrats have not moved beyond the filibuster, just a few items that concern black voters who are distinctly different in this category from black elected standing by their president in that category. That could be an issue for the president. Yes or no?
Yes, it could be an issue, but I think that the White House has done a bad job of communicating what they have accomplished on issues that affect African Americans. I've been a big critic of Joe Biden before he ran for president and even during his administration, because I haven't felt like they've been pushing on some of these issues, as you mentioned, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But at the same time, I have to give them credit for the things that they have done.
Sure.
And to acknowledge the things where they tried but weren't able to accomplish those things. So, for example, the student loan debt cancellation, which disproportionately would affect African American people, that issue has been stalled because of Republicans in Congress, Republicans in state governments, and attorneys general who are filing a lawsuit to stop that. Aid to black farmers. That's another issue where they tried to do something, but that issue has been solved because Republicans and conservatives have filed lawsuits to stop that. And those are just some of the things that are being blocked.
Yeah.
Biden has also appointed a historic number of black judges and black women in particular judges, and now we can't get those passed or get those confirmed, and even more because the Senate is in this whole sort of stalemate situation with the filibuster Republicans. But then there are some things where they have been successful. We have now the lowest black unemployment rate in history, which is something I think that the Biden administration has done a horrible job of communicating. Mm-hmm. Because when we had low unemployment in the Trump administration, which Trump inherited from Obama, Trump talked about it incessantly. You never heard him, even when he was talking to white people who didn't care about it, he talked about it. The Biden and the Biden team need to talk about that more. They need to talk about the historic HBCU funding. They need to talk about the fact that we actually passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act after 100 years of trying to do that. They need to talk about the fact that we have the first black woman in the Supreme Court, the first black woman who's the Vice President of the United States, and historic appointments they're making all throughout the government. But they have done a very ineffective job of communicating their successes. Even the trip that Kamala Harris took to Africa,
sure,
I didn't see that get anywhere near the coverage that should have gotten for the work that she was doing there.
I want to offer a thought on why they may not. They're not stupid. They're not naive. They know what they've accomplished, Keith Borkin. So the question is, why are they not pushing out more aggressively what they have done for black folk? And I'll give you my thought on why they may not be doing that. You can, I'm sure, can tell from my inflection the argument I'm about to make when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Come join us for a celebration of community, culture, and healing at the I Love Myself Festival, Sunday, May 21st from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the Outdoor Pavilion of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. Yoga, meditation, food, vendors, a kids zone, and a special panelist segment featuring Samantha Smith, Dee Smoke, and Ebony Davis. Performances by Wilson, Skylar Ray, Divas of Compton, Iman Europe, Kalan For Real, and Eric Bellinger. It's all going down Sunday, May 21st at the Outdoor Pavilion of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Let's come together for a day of fun, celebration, and healing. For more details, contact Project Pitt on social media or text 323-448-5770. The I Love Myself Festival in celebration of Mental Health Awareness Month is a free event for community healing and culture. May 21st from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall.
Let's get back to business, Los Angeles County. The Economic Opportunity Grant Program is now open. This program is designed to provide financial support to qualified small businesses, micro entrepreneurs, food industry businesses such as restaurants, and nonprofits in Los Angeles County. Approximately 4,600 grants of up to $2,500 will be administered to qualified micro businesses that face barriers to accessing capital resources. To learn more about the Economic Opportunity Grant Program, visit www.grants.lacounty.gov. The application process is fast and easy. Don't miss the opportunity to get back to business. This program is administered by the County of Los Angeles through its Department of Economic Opportunity and funded in part through a grant from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. Application portal is powered by Lendistry. Visit www.grants.lacounty.gov and get back to business.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
A little bit more is all we have time for. Keith Boykin, I got 3 minutes and I got 3 questions. Let's go. Number one, is it, to your point, I hear you loud and clear, but is it a winning strategy to tell all the good white folk what you've done for the black people?
It's a winning strategy to tell everybody what you've done for the black people, because black people are the most loyal constituency of the Democratic Party. And I know what you're saying. You're saying that you think that the White House is purposely not telling white people what they're doing because it might hurt them. And you might be right. I hope you're wrong, but you might be right. But the reason why that's problematic, though, and there's a core group of people in the Democratic Party who believe that you got to try to get those middle voters, middle America. Those people if they haven't already voted Democrat, they're not going to vote Democrat now. You're wasting your time. I would say get your base out there to vote, and black people are the people who need to be encouraged, motivated to vote.
Point well taken.
Next question.
Point well taken. Nope, point well taken. I tell you. Number two, should we be concerned that a few banks have failed, including most recently First Republic over the weekend, and that J.P. Morgan, who takes over First Republic after this seizure, is now is even a bigger bank? They were already the largest bank in the country, rather. So should we be concerned about these bank failings and that the biggest bank just got bigger?
Yes, we should be concerned about both. And part of the reason was we've seen these periods in time where we've had these efforts of deregulation. It happened in the 90s. It happened just a few years ago, where the banking industry is basically writing their own rules, where they're coming to the legislators in Washington saying, "Oh, we can manage this. You don't have to worry about these things. We'll take care of this." Even what we're seeing now with First Republic and some of the smaller banks is that those banks were kind of carved out from some of the structural requirements the other banks had to go through, because they didn't feel like they would affect the economy because they weren't too big to fail. And clearly there is a need for more regulation. We got to get out of this whole mentality that we let industries regulate themselves and that they're going to be always within the best interest of the consumers.
Yep. Last question in 30 seconds. Circling back to Donald Trump, if he is the presumptive nominee of the party, what does that say about the state and the future of the Republican Party?
I had this conversation with Michael Steele a year ago or so. I asked him about that because I was saying at that time, I think more black people should actually join the Republican Party, even though I'm not a Republican, to change the party. And Michael Steele told me it was too late. That the party is essentially, it's too late to be able to salvage the Republican Party for race issues or for black people. So I think the state of the Republican Party is dead. The party of Lincoln, as they used to call it, no longer exists.
Keith Boykin, national political commentator, New York Times bestselling author, former White House aide to President Bill Clinton. His most recent book is Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America. A fine read. I highly recommend it. Race Against Time by Keith Boykin. Keith, good to have you on. We covered those 3 minutes pretty quickly and I think pretty deftly. So thank you for your time, sir. We'll do it again.
Always a pleasure, Tavis.
Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley. After news, traffic, and sports, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. First Republic Bank is no more. Federal regulators seized the troubled bank early this morning and sold all the deposits and most